This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/Mapper Forward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and we are joined for episode 2 of our 5-part series with Werner Thie. And Werner, we are exploring your journey into producing coffee and growing coffee. Not for commercial production, but as a way of creating a kind of lifestyle for a season in your life that followed on from you being in the tech world and doing some rather extraordinary things in the tech world that you're going to not talk about because you're far too humble. But let's just leave that part at that. And so then you moved into this journey into Hawaii. And the real question that I want to explore with that is, what does it teach you about being a human when you enter into such an endeavor where producing coffee and producing the food that you're going to eat and having a kind of subsistence lifestyle is the direction that you've decided you'll live the rest of your life?
I would say first and foremost, it was recognizing, not in a superficial, but in a very deep way, culture almost nowhere on this planet pays for a living.
Do you mind saying that once more?
Almost nowhere on this planet, agriculture and agricultural lifestyle pays for a living. So agriculture in all modern nations is subsidized. Agriculture in underdeveloped regions of this planet is mostly a really, really hard survival game. Mm-hmm. And with a lot of people dying every day because of not being fed. So being at the beginning of that whole chain, and I would say we can take the coffee chain as something which is illuminating the whole problematic development on this planet, that if you drink a cup of espresso in a bar in Italy, there is absolutely no way how you can see how much work went into producing that cup of coffee. Mm. And the money is not flowing back. This is like the industry has built in so many backstops to take money out of that chain before it would reach the actual producer and grower, that we have a long way to go into the consumer, which needs to be educated about what he is consuming. Mainly a highly complex biological product, which was created with a lot of knowledge and a lot of devotion to quality and to the end product itself, which leaves the farm as green coffee. And just to illustrate that in numbers and figures, if we sell a pound of green for $35, mm-hmm. then we can pay ourselves, that means my wife and I, we can pay ourselves $10 on the hour. If we hire pickers, which pick at the quality level we require, I mean red cherries only. Mm-hmm. If we pick at that level, then we have to pay these pickers $15 on the hour. We cannot use them in the mode which is mostly used by weight. So paying them by the hour guarantees that they pick the good stuff only and leave the rest on the tree for the next pick to occur. Meaning that the whole equation does or cannot be solved. I mean, $35, who is willing to pay $35 for a pound of green, which has no special name attached, which has no special branding attached, which was not in a competition and came out first and stuff like that. Mm. But we are producing a coffee which sits in between 84 and 87 score. So yes, it's basically good grade SCA type specialty coffee. So, but we are usually fetching a price in between 20 and 25, which leaves quite a margin. And as we always try to tell people, is Hawaii is special insofar as a coffee producing countryside that we have drinking water which is clean, that we have a wastewater system which is at least partially functioning, that we have food and amenities and living quarters which have a certain standard of hygiene which allows you to go disease-free. So meaning we are far away from the production standards which are predominant in Puerto Rico, in Vietnam, in Brazil, in all the big coffee producing countries. So in my opinion, that recognizing that break in that, or these backstops in the whole production chain, was one of the more dig into, but then also became the main focal point on the educational part. We let gel in PCR. So PCR is basically educating people about where the value is in the coffee chain and who are the ones who are producing that valuable bit of biological tissue you then grind and extract and drink. And go on.
As I hear you talk, the main thing that I think about is all the producers that are experiencing the same kinds of questions and asking the same kinds of questions as what you're asking about how, and I hate to use this word, and I know that you're probably going to slap me up the head verbally for using it, but how is this sustainable?
It is not. It is not, because it is an extraction process. So if we talk about coffee extraction methods, then this has a second connotation, which has the uneducated, which has the so-called people you don't see being extracted and being abused and being enslaved in a type of situation which does not allow for any leeway, which does not allow for any growing, which does not allow for education, which keeps the people on the farm basically working in coffee at age 12 and up having and growing opiates and
coca,
a lot of, yes, whatever these people have to grow to sustain their living. And also with coffee then being a more highland plant than a lot of other plants.
Mm-hmm.
Then also seeing that the environmental impact of that chemical baseball bat strategy, poisoning groundwaters and of the people living further down the valley, meaning that they become culpable and blamable for the condition of wherever they live, poisoning their own people. So, but being forced into this because they have to keep up the yields, they have to basically
deliver.
Yes, they have to deliver certain amounts. I mean, oftentimes we have companies like Starbucks going into specific areas and then buying the future harvest up to 5 years in the future.
And they're certainly not getting $35 a pound for it.
Oh, of course not.
Right. I mean, we're talking about anywhere between $1 to $2 a pound.
If they're lucky, yes.
Yeah, based on what the C market's doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what is simply extraordinary to me is when we look at what producers in Hawaii are fetching for a pound of coffee and understanding that that's still razor thin margins. We're not talking about extraordinary amounts of profit here. And that's at $35 a pound. Still, the producer at $35 a pound makes next to nothing. And at $2 a pound, the producer is making a loss or next to nothing based on the yield that they're selling. How, and we might address this in the next episode, but how does this survive? Where does this go from here, given all the constraints and downward pressure that's happening on our industry right now, whether it be economics or geopolitics or climate change? Where do we go from here? Now that we speak openly, and we've been speaking openly about these truths for a couple of decades, because this is not a new problem.
No.
But things like social media and technology have given us the opportunity to exchange this information rather openly and talk more honestly about the fact that we are participants of a supply chain and a value chain that is intrinsically broken from its tail to its nose.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk about that in the next episode?
Sure. Okay,
perfect. And this is a wonderful conversation. I'm very much enjoying this, Werner. I hope you are too. And folks, I hope you're enjoying this conversation at wherever you're listening to it. So we'll see you in the next episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.